So we're getting ready to get started for our next session. Everybody start making their way back on inside. Also, just a quick reminder, no recording, no Facebooking, no periscoping. We do, actually, you can go ahead and get the recording now or go register for it at millionsconference.com. You're just gonna scroll down to the same section that you registered for, and you'll see the recording information right there. And you will get all of the VIP sessions, all of the Friday day sessions, all of the Friday night sessions, all of the Saturday day sessions. You'll get the entire conference for the price it is today. The price will be increasing after the weekend, so you all can get it at that price. You'll also be getting some behind the scene footage, which is a bonus to you all. So don't record, don't do anything live. You guys sacrificed to get here. You know, a lot of you paid a big price to get here, and so I want to make sure that you are enjoying the conference and not recording all of it or any of it. Okay? All right. So go to millionsconference.com to get your recording. Also, I think that was the only introduction. So up next, one of my favorite people. First of all, can we give a round of applause to Nicole? And she kill it. She is my sister friend, and she is amazing. Such a great message. So I'm grateful that she was here. And so the next session we have is I'm going to read her bio. Hi, Jack. This is Marshawn's husband. Hi. Thank you. Marshawn is, I'm going to read her bio, but she is absolutely amazing to me. I met Marshawn back in 2012. So many of you remember my story of how I became an entrepreneur in 2011, start making money in 2010, in 2011, start making money. But I met her in 2012, and she was the first person that I saw making millions that was talking about God and business. And she was brown. And you have to understand how powerful that is, because you can search high and low, even on the internet today, and you won't really find people that are as successful as we are, that have the same conversation with the online world, that know God and aren't afraid of it, right? And aren't afraid of that conversation. And so she really, and it takes a lot to impress me, and I was impressed, and I have the honor of her being a sister to me now, but she is an amazing person. I can't wait for her to fill you up. But I'm gonna read her bio. Marshawn Evans Daniels is a reinvention strategist, influence expert, best-selling author, and life coach, mentoring women around the world to live bolder in the areas of faith and business. As a serial entrepreneur, TV personality, creator of Goffidence Movement, and founder of She Profits, she helps women turn ideas into income and faith into action. As a former sports attorney, Miss America finalist, and competitor on The Apprentice, how many of y'all saw her on CNN the other day? Listen, she don't play. She left a high-power law firm and turned her passion for people into a multi-million-dollar enterprise, appearing regularly on CNN, Fox Business, and ESPN. Her clients range from Rolls-Royce, HP, Nike, Home Depot, Ernest Young, and NFL and NBA superstars to everyday dreamers seeking to find their voice and maximize their potential. Her signature programs include the Speak for Pay Bootcamp, Brand Class, Attract Sponsors, and Find Your Purpose in the Confidence Women's Summit. Named Women Entrepreneur of the Year by the Atlanta Business League. She is a graduate of Georgetown University Law Center and has admitted to practice before the Supreme Court. She is also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, a Harry S. Truman Scholar, and a former U.S. ambassador to the International Summit of Achievement in Dublin, Ireland. Marshawn released her best-selling book, Skirts in the Boardroom, published by Wiley, the largest business book publisher in the world, and it was the first time Wiley published a business book with an African-American female under the age of 30. Her new book, Believe Bigger, teaches 5 keys to shifting into your life purpose. It's debuted at #1. How many cousins read that book? I'm playing. It was a new release. It was debuted as the #1 new release in the country in the women in business category. And her philosophy is, if you are not living on the edge, you are taking up too much space. Here to show you how to elevate your influence, income, purpose, please welcome my friend, my sister, Reinvention Strategist, Marshawn Evans Daniels. Yay!
all snap with me? And I'm hoping you got rhythm. And can you sing with me? This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Keep going. Light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Wow. Now I get to do this all around the world. This is the first time that I've had music, but this is millions. Before you sit down, I want to thank all the cousins. I didn't do this by myself. For this book to be published by a Christian publisher, and I had to fight with them. I said, I want to put it in the women in business category, and they said, we didn't sign you to do that. And I said, I have this vision of this Proverbs 31 woman, and they said, well, we don't really put Christian books in the women in business category. So for this to be the #1 new release for 4 months in women in business, Tiffany, I called you 6-8 months before it even came out, and I hadn't talked to you in person in several months or years. And she said, we're going to make this the book of the month for this book club I have that has thousands of people. You all made this #1. Thank you. I love you. All right. Everyone be seated, be seated, be seated, be seated. The tears aren't a part of my talk. But this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. We're gonna talk today about not just shining your light, but amplifying your light. How many of you all know that all light is not created equal? I believe that there is a certain grace this year. I'll give this back to you. Thank you so much. There's a certain grace upon some specific calibers of light that are being amplified in this season. Look at your neighbor and say, amplify. Amplify means to make larger, to make greater, to magnify. And there's a certain type of favor that is upon a certain type of mission that God has, which is tied into a certain type of light that he's trying to use. Look at your neighbor and say, this is going to be good. And there's 2 types of light in particular. One is the light of a catalyst. And there's something that I know about you that you may not know about yourself. I believe that there are millions in your mouth. Millions in terms of money. Now, you're going to hear me also talk about money today. Very specifically, I'm going to talk about numbers. If you don't like that, you probably came to the wrong conference, right, Tiffany? But I firmly believe that you will never attract that which you are uncomfortable talking about. Money is man-made. Prosperity is God-given. And so I believe there is this light of the catalyst. The catalyst is the igniter and the starter. And that there are some of you here today that are designed to be catalysts and you're not operating in that space. But there is a specific type of grace and favor upon the catalyst light. But then there's also a second light. And it's the cash flow light. You're looking at me like, what does that mean? There's a certain type of illumination that God has in the earth that he attaches to wealth. Yes. And that if we are afraid of what it really means to be wealthy, that there is a fear that is blocking something that God is trying to actually release. Because money also gives influence. Am I right? Yes or yes? And so there are these 2 types of light. There is the catalyst light. Look at your neighbor and say catalyst. And cash flow. And I believe these 2 lights come together in the specific calling, everyone say calling, of this woman who is the Proverbs 31 woman. And specifically, there's this verse that has captured my heart and my soul in this season, and it says that she makes sure that her dealings are profitable. You said, yes, because most of us have actually never heard that one before. It's not been taught, preached on Sunday. When we dress up in white with the big hats and learn about her, I think she's been mistaught, undertaught. And it's so interesting that we know of her works, we don't even know her name. She was a bad chick. So there's these two lights. There's this light of being a catalyst, a starter, an igniter, which is also the type of person who is capable of creating things that have never been created before, kind of like the God that we serve. And then there's this other light, this cash flow light, that is designed to not actually enrich you just to get to enjoy what God is doing. And so this cash flow and this catalyst light come together in the specific calling that I see manifested in this woman that we call the Proverbs 31 woman. I think she was so great the men were too intimidated to even put her name in the book. And fair warning, I believe the mission, the mantle, and the mandate on my life in this season is to help the real Proverbs 30 woman stand up and to become millionaires. Is that okay? Now, I get a little bit nervous. Y'all just going to be real honest for a second. I get a little bit nervous around black people because I don't know how to hoop. I can't do the, and I remember one day sitting at this church and saying, I was sitting there, they had like where the speakers sit on the platform with the nice, like you're the Pope type of church, chairs and everything. And I saw them, he was like, and I was like, first of all, God, how is she doing that? And second, Lord, you know I can't do that. And he whispered so gently to me. Now, mind you, this was the first time I had ever taught on the Proverbs 31 woman. I was just like 23 years old. I'm 25 now. He said, you don't have to be like them, just be you. And so I'm going to share with you 3 core things today. Number 1, I'm going to talk to you about how to believe bigger, what that really means. It's not about cars and stuff. There's nothing wrong with the stuff, but it is about moving from a place of success to significance. So I'm going to talk to you about belief. Number 2, I'm going to talk to you about purpose. I believe that I have a superpower. I'm going to talk to you about your superpowers. A lot of people talk about purpose. I believe I've been giving a specific mantle of being able to break purpose down in a way that it is understandable. So I'm going to talk to you and share with you and map out for you what the purpose journey looks like. Is that okay? And then number 3, I'm also going to talk to you from a place of precision and specificity. I also believe that one of the giftings that I have is the gifting or the spirit or even the light of precision and strategy. So I love to pray and I love to exhort and all of those things, but I'm going to do my best not to talk to you in any church language today at all, period. Because to cross over into, I don't even use the phrase marketplace because business people don't say marketplace, they say business. So I'm going to talk to you like I talked in the boardroom, talking to the current president. I'll just call him 45. And I'm going to talk to you like I speak if I'm on CNN or if I'm working with my clients at HP Office Depot, Ernst & Young, Delta Airlines, because I don't use spiritual talk in a business world. And so we have to learn to become bilingual. So the gifting I have, I believe, is very, oh, that was good. I got to. Everybody say, aha. So the reason I'm sharing this is I want to be very precise with you about what I believe is the number 1 income attraction tool that will help you to step into the vision that I know you have, the message that I already know is in your mouth, and that is professional speaking. Is that okay? And I'm going to share with you how I went from stuck, pretty much hitting rock bottom, and rebuilt my life from scratch, and generated $5 million as a professional speaker in the process. Is that okay? All right, well, if you're ready, what do they say on the Apollo? If you're ready to get it started, say, yeah. If you're ready to get it started, say, yeah. So, purpose. I thought I was with cousins. I didn't have to be stuffy today, right? So, purpose. Purpose is the most powerful force on the planet. I believe you're created on purpose, with purpose, from a place of purpose, for the very purpose of purpose. Now, that's a lot of purpose, but here's the problem with that. Most people do not know their purpose. And it's that spiritual talk that we like to talk, but we're not actually walking it, and it's not popular for a believer, especially a woman, to confess that she loves God, she knows God, she serves God, and she wants to fulfill the purpose for which she was sent, but she doesn't actually know what it is because it's not popular to admit it out loud. And so, purpose is this thing that we just talk around, but this I know for sure, that a woman who does not know her purpose settles. She settles for success. She settles for people-pleasing, protocol, approval, and what I think is worst of all of them, actually two more, proving, performance. Any provers, strivers, performers? Oh, liars, lots of liars. How do I know that? I know you're a black woman. We have been taught that we weren't good enough, so that we strive, we prove. We have been taught. Am I the only one? My mama is here. Well, I'm going to tell you what my mama told me. She says, honey, you're going to have to be better than them. You're going to have to show up, work twice as hard, stay twice as long. You better stand up, mama. Give them that little pageant wave. Give them that little... And so, if you cannot fix what you will not face. So when we do not operate in purpose, we settle for performance and proving because we don't know anything else. We've been taught approval and appropriateness and protocol instead of purpose. But what I think is worst of all of them is appropriateness. What is appropriate for a woman of God? What is appropriate for a woman of color? What is appropriate? And so I learned this as a young girl. I was about 11 years old, sitting on the floor of the living room of my parents' house. I actually grew up in North Dallas in the suburbs. And I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood, went to school where all the kids were pretty much white. My brother and I were two of 5 black kids in the whole school. So for me, being in North Dallas in the early 80s felt a lot like integration because it was the first time that a lot of the teachers had black children in their class. And so I was sitting in my living room one day. It was kind of that time right before the evening time where it was not quite dark yet, but it was kind of transitioning there. And I see this woman walking down the street. Now, I'm just people watching, looking through the blinds, thinking that I can see her, but she can't see me. And she's a short little woman, long Pocahontas hair, and she is just walking, and her hair is a-flinging. And then all of a sudden, she stops dead smack in front of, I was about to say my house, but I wasn't paying the mortgage, right, Mom? Stops dead smack in front of our house. And she then proceeds to walk up the walkway, and I'm thinking, am I in trouble for staring? Because we had a stare match for a little while, and you know you don't win a staring competition with an 11-year-old. She proceeds to ring the doorbell, and as she does, my dad comes to the front, and she explains, and I kind of tuck my head under there because I'm curious, again, if I'm in trouble, but I know it's not going to go down in front of my dad. And she says that she needs a babysitter. She didn't have time to find one and wanted to know if I would fill in for the job. Now, I didn't even know she knew me. I thought I had blind faith. I was standing behind these blinds thinking I could see her, but she couldn't see me. And how many, sometimes people see you when you don't even think they're watching, looking, or have even noticed that you were there. And so my dad asked me, do you want to do this? And he looks down at me, and I look up at him, and I said, sure. And so then we dart across the street over to her house. In less than 3 minutes, she's out the door. She explains to me how to make sure her house does not burn down and how her kids don't end up in child protective care and my care. And then she's gone. About 2 hours later, she returns, and she says, you know what, I didn't have an opportunity to make any stops, but tell me, how did everything go? And I said, everything went fine, but what I really wanted to say is, you raise Bebe's kids. Your kids never, ever, ever need to have sugar ever again, but I was too polite, and I had too much appropriateness in me to say that. So I said, everything went fine. And she reached in her back pocket, kind of fumbled around and said, I didn't have an opportunity to stop by the bank, but this is all I have on me. I have a 1, and she crumbled out this 5, and I have a 5. Which do you want? And I found myself staring again. Now, in my heart of hearts, I really wanted to say, both. But I was too polite for that, and I also realized that I didn't want to be a problem. How many of you ever been in that place where you're facing this crossroads and you actually want to reach for more, probably what you've already earned, because technically I filled in on short notice. I put 2 kids that I didn't know who had never been with me before to bed, and I cleaned the living room. Some of you want to hire me right now. But something inside of me felt greedy or dirty or wrong for wanting more. Am I the only one who's ever felt that? And so I looked and I said, you know what? I don't want to be who they say I am at school, which is a problem child. I was already labeled a problem child, told that I was antisocial and needed special education. I later went on to Georgetown, but I didn't know that at 11 years old, that was going to be my future. I just knew that everybody looked at me as the angry black girl at 11. My mama spent lots of time at that principal's office fighting on my behalf. I wasn't bad. I was just brown. I showed up the first day of school in kindergarten. Well, I was in first grade. My brother's in kindergarten, and they told us we needed to be at the school down the street because that's where they didn't say this, but basically they assumed because that's where all the brown kids went. And we had to show our IDs to prove that we belonged there, while kids who lived on the same street as me that I played with that summer walked right into their classrooms. And so as I looked, I said, I'll take the 1. And then she pulled back and said, are you sure? And I said, yes, ma'am, I'm sure. So she gave me the 1. She took that 5 back, put it in her back pocket, and I was off. I was back home. And as I walked home, I was actually proud of myself because I earned something that day. Now, I hadn't thought in advance about what my compensation would be, which is often why but I also learned a very powerful lesson. One of the things I talk about in Believe Bigger, I learned a very powerful thorn that day as well, which is this: if you allow yourself to settle for less, nobody is obligated to stop you. You see, I wanted her to tell me that I was good enough, that I was worthy enough, that I had earned what I had already deserved. I was waiting on her, but little did I know she couldn't give me the approval that I was looking for. And one of the key things that's required to believe bigger and to step into more is to, first of all, believe that you're worthy of it. People can actually never pay you what you're worth. They can only pay you what's worth your time. That's way better than some of y'all in the back realize, but that's all right. People can't pay you what you're worth. They can only pay you what you decide is worth your time. But where does that feeling come from where we battle between less and more? Why do we feel like something is wrong when we're being called higher, led to do more, when we want to build more, but we feel like we're stepping out of line, we're being inappropriate, it's not ladylike, this is not what we're supposed to do? Or the other voice that says, who do you think you are? See, I know that there are 2 competing voices that are battling for this light that's inside of you, this incredible light, this unique light, because both of these voices know how amazing you actually are. One of these voices I call Little Me. Readers of Believe Bigger know Little Me. Little Me is the obnoxious little voice in your head. Little Me, who you've been rolling with for a long time. It's the voice probably navigating most of your life, the voice that says, who do you think you are? Now, I didn't say the enemy. I said little me. Because there's so many things that we blame on the enemy that's really a byproduct of our own stinking, shrinking thinking. Little me ends with the letters M-E, which I utilize not to replace the enemy, but to grow up and use personal responsibility. Hyper-spiritualization is not the path into millions. So little me is obsessed with your smallness, keeping you stuck, keeping you small, doing anything possible to keep you out of your purpose, to keep you out of your assignment. And the way that little me does this is with a very specific tactic, which is doubt. You know doubt very well. You call it the spirit of excellence. So she said, break that down. So little me is a very tricky voice. Little me also knows how to utilize scripture, success, anything that will make you not feel uncomfortable. So little me isn't always dirty. Little me is strategic. How many of you been launching to launch, and saying, I'm just getting my stuff in order because I want to do it in decency and in... Little me knows you very well. Little me knows you incredibly well. But we're also taught, I'm going to tell you in just a minute, where you learn little me and how you've been trained to listen more to little me and calling it the spirit of discernment when it's really doubt. The other voice is future me. Future me is the voice of faith. Y'all got to see his face. He's like, he should be a meme right now. He's like, where did this girl come from? Little me is the voice of fear. Future me is the voice of faith. It's the voice that says, yes, you, why not you, and especially you. You have been called for such a time as this. But here, get this. Future me is also the voice that says, go. It's not loud. Future me is also the voice that says, yes, you can. Future me is the voice that gives you those ideas and those dreams. Future me conspires with the Holy Spirit at the direction of God to help you manifest the prayers and the dreams that are in your heart, but also the ones that you don't even know exist. Future me understands what little me also knows is that you have an incredible light. And so the two of these forces, little me and future me, they battle for you. They battle for you. And what little me knows, and that future me doesn't want you to know, is that there are 5 stages to stepping into your life mission. 5 stages. And little me ain't happy about what I'm about to share with you. Little me's going to come up probably while I'm talking to you. Little me is an accuser. And little me is also very arrogant. I already know this. I already know my purpose. I already know my calling. I already know my assignment. Or, may I? I teach people about purpose. What does this woman have to tell me? So I have no doubt that you're already amazing. But I just came to iron sharpen your iron today. So what I want you to do is I want you to sit up straight from a spirit of expectancy, because our bodies also indicate, I've been a student of peak performance, what I'm coining is this phraseology called achievement psychology, for over 20 years. Studied why is it that certain people can change their lives and other people just talk about it. So I want you to sit up straight and with everything in your body, pretend like heaven is actually watching. At attention is the commander of the universe watching and seeing someone who's actually ready. Because I'm not common. It's not a common message. I have every expectation because of the environment that Tiffany Montgomery has put together that this will be a destiny shift for you. I love this woman. I see her in dimensions. This will probably be the smallest thing she ever does again. But she already got started. And so I want you to sit up, and in ballet, when I took ballet as a kid, we would kind of put our hands in the air with like a little arabesque. So if you put your hands in the air right now, everybody, 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 everybody. I always wanted to do that. I see that at the churches. They go, everybody, everybody, everybody. Come and give it. Okay, so everybody, even the keyboard. It's awesome. So you're going to then take your hand, you're going to flip it over like a ballerina, nice and elegant, and then you're going to pretend like there's a string coming up from the top of the ceiling all the way down through, and you're going to just pull yourself up. Now, you thought you were already sitting up straight. You didn't know you could go even higher, right? All right, so let's go right into... Oh my goodness. Note to self. Note to self. Millions is the most lit thing ever. I'm not just saying that. I have been speaking since I was a teenager, professionally, around the world. I looked over at my mom, I said, I ain't never seen anything like this. And you know what my mom said? She goes, where is the church? Where is her church? I want to go to it. Now, I'm not saying that because you and I know we both have the same understanding about church and also what calling and how they're different, but that means so much to me for my mom to say that about you. Yes, yes. So what I'm going to share with you is this purpose journey and what these 5 stages of stepping into your life mission are like. And I'm going to also share with you why purpose is not about your why. Purpose is about your where. Your why you end up making up. Oh, what's my why? And then you feel pressure to come up with it, so you make it up. Purpose is also not about your passion. Get this, there are many things that you have been called to do, and then there are other things that you have never done that you do even better. So how can you be passionate about something that you've never stepped into? If eyes haven't seen and ears haven't heard, how can you actually? So purpose is, I just want to clean the slate from all of the years of not necessarily, some of it's junk, some of it's just misteaching, and some of it is outdated. How many of you know some things just expire? Right? Trees die, and he replants with fresh wisdom for a new mission. God's message isn't changed, but his method is changing. And so some of the thinking that we have is attached to old methods that won't take us into new promised lands. So purpose is not about your why. Purpose is not about your passion, because that makes it about you, which is one of the reasons why we make purpose an idol. We create purpose in our own image, and then we say, God bless it. Purpose is about your where. And it is impossible. I believe this wholeheartedly, so much so that I stepped away from an event and a business that generated $1.7 million in 3 days because God said, I want you to write a book that costs $25. This is how much I believe in purpose. It is impossible to fulfill your purpose and your life mission without embracing your voice. Everything that you desire is on the other side of your story. Now, I can't give you your story, and neither can any other man. They don't have to, because you are the story. But what I can give you is a strategy on how to amplify that, and this is why I believe speaking is so powerful. And so there are these 5 stages. I call them the purpose map. Now, I's a lawyer. This is a TM, which means trademarked. I just want to say, some of you follow me on social media. You know the saints try me. Now, I love God. I love God. But don't mess with my property. Don't mess with my property. I will send you a nice, hey, sis. Godfidence is federally trademarked. Well, you don't own God, blah, blah, blah. Well, the federal U.S. Patent and Trademark Office says I do. And so that's a whole other point that's not attached to this. I'm just saying. But I do believe that intellectual property is the same thing, well, as does the government. Intellectual property and federal property are the same, physical property, the same thing. So the purpose map, there are these 5 stages. Most people will never make it out of stage 2. And that's because we're taught to prioritize retirement more than reinvention. So stage 1 is called discovery. Discovery. Again, how many Believe Bigger readers in here? Yay. So how many don't have Believe Bigger? Shame them. No, I'm just kidding. So the stage one is called discovery. I'm going to go through this really quickly, and then I'm going to break it down, and we're going to talk some business and money stuff too. So stage one is called discovery. Discovery is where we learn the do's and don'ts of life. At each of these 5 stages, we ask a critical question. And the question we ask here is, who am I supposed to be? Who am I supposed to be? And it's when we're in our formative seasons and stages of life that we ask this question, and then we get shoulded on. Here's what you should do. Here's what you should be. Here's what you shouldn't do, and here's what you should not do. So this is where we learn the do's and don'ts of life. Are you with me? You learn this from our church. We learn this from family. We learn this from our moms, our dads, our grandparents, who are all teaching us what they believe we should do. Most of the time with good intentions, but also based off of their own experiences. And so we get shoulded on. We learn the do's and don'ts. This is also where we learn people-pleasing protocol, approval, and appropriateness. This is where we get trained to live smaller than our destiny. We get trained for it because everyone doesn't want us to fall and bump our knee, and they tell us not to color outside of the line. This is where we learn to follow what I call the rules. Now, this is a rule. That's a book. I'm an excellent artist. Speak those things that are not as though they were, right? We learn the rules. Now, my rules are different than yours, and your rules are different than the woman or man sitting next to you, but all of us have them. You following me? Yes or yes? And so we each have these different rules, and these rules become like an internal compass that navigate our life, what we will do, what we won't do, what we hesitate over, when we're sitting here battling between, do I reach for more, do I reach for less, where we're really saying, what is it I'm supposed to do based off of who I was told I needed to be, what should I do, what shouldn't I do, and we have this dialogue going on. We're not actually, we think we're having a conversation usually with God, but really we're engaging little me. And so this is where we learn to play it safe. This is where we learn to do what it takes to be successful and to get that good job with the check, that blue check that has benefits. Why? Because that's what we were taught we should do based off of what those who came before us could do. It's very difficult to impart something greater if you've never seen it. So we've got to be very aware of the weaknesses and the limited thinking of those who meant greatness for us but didn't know how to give it to us. Yes? So that's stage one, discovery. This is also where we adopt most of our insecurity, most of our fears. And when we're hurt, we end up overcompensating for it by saying, I'll never trust her or him or them. Whatever your never is also probably one of the rules that has to be rewritten for you to step into a place you've never been before. So stage one is discovery. Stage two is talent. In the talent stage, we ask the question, who did I decide to be based off of who the rules told me I should be? Now, in this stage of the talent stage, we end up picking a lane that the rules told us was good enough for us. These are mountains. And these lanes become our life. We end up climbing what I call one of 5 success mountains for women. Marriage is one. Motherhood. Mending. This is your desire to fix things for everybody else. Spending more time in someone else's vineyard or in someone else's drama, someone else's dream or business, on the phone, being their unlicensed therapist, or because they call, you actually answer and then you rearrange your whole life for everybody else's priorities. So motherhood, marriage, mending. Then there's making a difference. Well, how could that be? An obstacle. Because sometimes even making a difference is ego. Because it makes you feel good. So even service is not, none of these are bad. We've got to make sure that are they becoming our identity? And the last mountain is money. The money mountain is the mountain of prestige and titles. And we've got to be very careful of the stories we tell ourselves at the end of two words, I am. When we say, I am a mother, I am a wife, I am a servant, I am a VP of this, I am whatever it says on this little business card, or whatever you put in your caption on social media. Because these labels we tell ourselves, these stories we tell ourselves are really fables hidden as labels. And these titles we adorn, these titles become idols. And so none of these mountains are bad. They're actually all blessed. But when they become your identity, they take you out of alignment with the ultimate assignment of your life. Now, I said that most people will never make it out of stage 2. Look at your neighbor and say, don't let that be you. Boo. So I was most identified with the money mountain. Now, let me see. How many of you most have identified with maybe the marriage mountain? Finding your identity and being a mom. What about, did I say marriage? Well, motherhood or marriage. What about making a difference or mending other people? Wow, look around the room. Not alone, not alone. And what about the money mountain, the prestige mountain, finding our identity in what we do? Because what do you really say when somebody says, so tell me about yourself? You start with, right? So there's no wonder we don't know about purpose. We've been taught to put on labels. Now, that's a whole nother message about all the stuff that we wear that isn't actually attached to our purpose, in addition to these metaphysical labels that we adopt that become our identity. And so I very much related to that money mountain, because I didn't think that if I was successful and if I became a multi-million-dollar business owner that I would actually find a man who would be comfortable with that. Know very clearly that your beliefs determine what you attract and what you don't have. Can I submit to you that perhaps some of the things we don't have today are because of the things that we don't believe? We might say it. I meet women every day, and I've been there myself, where we talk about, well, there's no good men, but I'm believing God for one. Okay. You're lying. You're actually cursing your own request. Double-minded. And so there was this point where I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go after the money mountain also because I can control that. I can't control whether somebody picks me. I can't control whether I have children. I can't control whether someone will let me do something. But I can control my own success. Because one of the things that I learned about being a problem child is that you don't get a lot of great responses from that. You get attention, but it's not the kind of attention that you want. So what I learned at the age of 10 was that I could shift that around and become a performer and an achiever. So I became addicted to achievement and success, and I firmly believed, and I think that this was actually, sometimes God will give us thinking for a time so that we can gain some depth, but then he's going to ask us to rewrite it. So I believed for years, decades even, that being successful was part of fulfilling God's mandate on my life. Now, what did that do? It taught me depth. It taught me discipline. It taught me how to show up differently than others. I was a competitive baton twirler. I'm legally blind in my left eye, but I won the talent competition at Miss America. I was an international two-baton champion. I had to work harder than everybody else. So what did being an achiever teach me? It taught me how to achieve some stuff. So for me, I would have, be juggling, throwing batons in the air. I was saying P413, which stood for Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthened me, while I was on the floor, not while I was just talking about it, but while I was in it. And so I always thought the gospel was a contact sport. I thought that. And because I wasn't popular, I wasn't trying to fit in with anyone else. I was really isolated, and I felt rejected, but I didn't know I was being incubated. And so I learned a lot on this mountain at an early age. By the time I was 21, I had done more than most people accomplish in a lifetime. I had been third runner-up at the Miss America competition, winning talent and interview, the first time a woman had won talent at Miss America. I had gotten over $200,000 in academic scholarships. I was accepted to multiple law schools, ended up going to Georgetown University Law School, 100% debt-free. That means no loans, no financial aid. My dad told me I had gotten into the University of Texas, and he said, well, you know, you could stay at home if you come to Texas. And I was like, Daddy, you didn't raise me like that. He says, well, you're going to be on your own. And I was like Tiffany, well, challenge accepted. And I ended up paying my way through law school coaching. I didn't even really know what coaching was. I wasn't trying to find a title. I was trying to pay for my education. I didn't have time to overthink it, and that's part of the problem is we think so long about what is God's plan. Well, maybe deseo, desire. God says, I give you the desire of your heart. Deseo, I learned this from Tony Robbins, means of the Father. Maybe the desire that he gave you is actually his desire for you. And technically, at the time, Texas was ranked higher than Georgetown, but I ended up going to Georgetown University for law school, graduating 100% debt-free. In my last year of law school, I ended up doing this show called The Apprentice. They used to clap for it. Times have changed. Man. But I was on that show. Over 1 million people apply. There's one brown girl spot, as we all know. 18 people get on, one African-American female. I'm on the show 10 out of the 13 weeks. I was on the year that Randall Pinkett won, the only African-American to win when it was not the celebrity version of The Apprentice. And so I'm on The Apprentice. I did this my last year of law school. And it is an exciting thing because here I haven't even started practicing law yet. Actually, my first week at my law firm, I got over 20 offers. I accept this law firm job at one of the biggest firms in Atlanta. And the second week of my being at my job, I'm on national television. So people in offices all around the world now know my name, and I'm 25. There was a woman who was my mentor. Thank you. There was a woman who was my mentor, a black female, who was one of the reasons I went to the firm. She was a partner there. She was also the reason why I ended up leaving. It was because she was jealous. Now, I talk about this in Believe Bigger. I don't want to break this down because it's not the point of my talk. But some people just can't give you what they don't have. Now, hold on. I want to get this out. Because I wanted to learn from someone who looked like me and who was where I wasn't even at. And I thought it very odd, and I don't say it, because I think sometimes we say people are jealous of us and they ain't even checking for us, okay? But she sat me down one day and she said, you know, you have the type of name recognition that some people work their whole career for. And I thought it was a compliment at the time because I was that naive. And I started feeling somewhat, when I say harassed, I felt this really, I started losing weight and losing hair, and I was an employment lawyer, and I felt like one of the cases I was reading about. And being in this toxic work environment where she was making things very difficult for me because I was traveling as a speaker, I would go to the managing partner, but because I didn't go through her to do it, who do you think you are? That's not how things go around here. And then I started meeting professional athletes. Now, the day after I got fired on The Apprentice, which is when I knew that 45 made bad decisions, the next day, I'm in a suite by myself, and I get this, what I call a lightning bolt moment in Believe Bigger. A lightning bolt moment is oftentimes, again, using the word light. We talked about there's certain types of light. Not all light is created equal, yes? I get this lightning bolt moment with this inspiration that I've never had before to work with professional athletes, the NFL and NBA. I've never done this before. I paid my way through law school coaching Miss America and Miss USA contestants on public speaking, but also on their presentation, their communication skills. Today we would call it branding. I'm so OG, that's how not OG I am, okay? I tried. Old G, yeah. We didn't even call it branding back then. It was presentation and communication training. And that's how I paid my way through law school. And I had this thought that I would work with professional athletes. And it came out of nowhere, but I've been walking with God long enough and not asking for people's opinions for most of that time that I just knew it was going to be true. But I also learned who you can tell. And sometimes you do need to speak it into the atmosphere and existence and have someone who will stand in agreement with you. So I didn't just call anybody. I called the woman who I knew would support me in all of these crazy revelations, because my life has never been a normal pattern. I've always had, whether it was teachers or professors, I've said about, why aren't you following the rules? Why are you leaving school early and not asking your professors? Because I made a relationship with the chancellor. So I just made better relationships, or I didn't have to go. And so I called my mom. And I said, Mom, I have no idea how this is going to happen, but I'm going to work with professional athletes in the NFL and the NBA. This is less than 24 hours after I got fired on The Apprentice. That night they took me to dinner, a psychiatrist did that every night to make sure we wouldn't hurt ourselves. True talk. The next morning I get this lightning bolt moment, and I believe what God does is he gives us these glimpses. And as I told my mom this, she says, well, I don't know how it's going to happen either, but I have every confidence that it will. And she always reminds me of my faith history. You all have done some crazy things before. You and God are going to do some crazy things again. And so I'll fast forward. I'm at the law firm, and I'm feeling kind of like this definitely is not a place where I could stay. But I started feeling that uncomfortableness again, like I should be grateful for where I'm at, because this is what I asked for. I went to school for this. I invested $150,000 in scholarships and my own hard-earned coin to pay for this degree, and now I'm sitting on the 21st floor of this high-rise of this building with this career that I should love, but I feel like there's still more. And so I felt, interesting enough, that sometimes you can get to the top of a success mountain, and then what was once more now becomes less. And I remembered that lightning bolt moment of desiring to go into sports. I started actually meeting professional athletes, and because I was a first-year associate, the powers that be said, you're not the powers, 2 women. I shouldn't blame where blame didn't happen. 2 people, 2 women. Explain that that's not what is expected of me as a first-year lawyer, is not to generate business when that's how you make partner. My mind is, how do you get to the top? You bring in business, you bring money, they call them rainmakers in law, and that's how you make partner. And so I'm meeting athletes. We can do intellectual property, we can do estate planning, we can do their taxes, we can handle litigation issues. You're too young for that. We want you to go to networking events with other lawyers. They're not going to hire me. It just didn't click. So I had to make a decision. Was I going to stay, or was I going to step into something bigger? And so I made the decision. I leave my law firm. I start my own sports agency. I end up signing the highest paid defensive end in the NFL as my first client. He had just signed a $62 million 7-year deal, first client. And then my first corporate client, a couple of weeks later, is Rolls-Royce. Probably days later, is Rolls-Royce. And then Nike. And then Tiffany and Company. These are my first 3 clients. And then I went on to doing deals with Sprint and PepsiCo and Gatorade. And I didn't learn this in law school. I didn't learn how to sign clients. Apparently, I'm not even supposed to be doing business development. I'm supposed to be networking with other lawyers. And my agency grows to be the fastest growing woman-owned sports agency in the country in less than a year. And so, life is good at this time. I'm working at this I have my own my own office. I had this loft-style office. I have a staff. I got a payroll, which I actually believe is a blessing because that means I can be the lender and not the borrower. I can be the sower. And so I have this successful sports agency. I'm traveling around the world, sitting on 50-yard lines, doing endorsement deals, and this agency is growing. I also have a book out at the time called Skirts in the Boardroom, and it had done really well. I was also traveling a lot as a professional speaker, which always was the undercurrent. That's also one of the ways that I paid my way in college and in law school was speaking. This was in my early 20s. Again, I'm just 25. And so on top of that, I'm engaged. As Tiffany says, so I find myself engaged to an amazing man. And he's very talented, successful, and we get engaged. He has 3 children, and there was something unique about hearing the baby girl, when I was giving her a bath, call me mom, or the middle child explained to me when we went on a trip that, and I said, well, what do you want to wear? He's like, you're supposed to pick out my clothes. That's what my mom does. And that level of responsibility hit me in a way that The Apprentice and Georgetown and Miss America and all of these successes and accolades, it was so different. It was so much sweeter. That idea of being a mom and then also having this relationship. So it wasn't even a hard choice for me. I closed my sports business down for love. And so I start transitioning all my clients to other representation, and I end up getting ready on a Monday morning before a Saturday wedding to pick my fiance up from the airport. And that Monday morning, I woke up early. I knew he was coming in every single day because we had a long-distance courtship. He lived in Chicago, I in Atlanta. I would get a text message from him every day with a sweet note. And this day was no different, that he was excited to come in for wedding week. Now, mind you, 6 days before, everything is paid for. The dress, cake, the venue. People are coming in with their tickets from around the world, their airline tickets, hotel. And so there's a lot that goes into a wedding. Yes, ladies? And so that Monday morning, I was super excited. And then I get a message from someone else that's not him, but a her. And as Tiffany says, it's going straight to hell. She explained to me, this is 6 days before my wedding, less than 10 seconds after I got a note from who I thought was my forever after, that she was sleeping with my fiance. And she was able to explain to me the bed that she slept in that I picked out that I hadn't even moved into yet, in a house that I hadn't even moved into yet. And so when I called him, I said, this can't be true. I know her. I called him and I said, this can't be true. And he was like, no, I knew she was going to do something like this. Don't believe her. Sweetie, I'll be there soon. I knew that this was going to happen. Don't believe her. Something else, wah. Then he said, don't believe her. And it was that word believe that stood out to me 3 times, almost like a crow. And the Spirit grew up inside of me. I call it in Believe Bigger, the oak tree. If you don't have it, you really need to get your hands on this because I can't really break this down. But this oak tree grew up inside of me. And it said, get dressed. And so I did. And I head my way to the airport. This is where I actually call the woman. I have no idea how I got to the airport, how I talked to her while I was on the way there. But it wasn't what she said that made me certain. I was sitting back in the cut. You know the cut. At baggage claim, I could see him, but he couldn't see me. And I wanted to see him with my spiritual eyes. I didn't care what he was going to say. I didn't need anybody else's words. I needed to see for myself. And there was a countenance upon him that I had never seen before. I don't know that I even missed it. I don't think that I was supposed to see it until this moment. Because a lot of people said, how did you not know? Or then you have people say, I always knew. Liar. And then if you did and you didn't say something, I don't want you in my life. So, to hear about that conversation and to learn who that woman was, I would suggest that you pick up a copy of this book called Believe Bigger. because I want to move on. I won't be able to break down the whole conversation. But what I learned in that moment is that I was facing something that was actually very destiny-oriented, and this is how the purpose journey works. What I now know is that there's these things that we go through called split rock moments that are actually divinely designed to take us out of our comfort zone that we didn't even know we were in, because we thought that we were successful or that we were following the mandate of God, we were doing what we should do, but we didn't know that it was time to move because we've been taught so much to grow where we're planted, we don't even know how the voice sounds to go when God says move and to step. And then we start saying, oh, no, I need to get confirmation. There's very little in the Bible that commands confirmation. I'm just going to knock these on the ground for a moment. That's just a little me thing sometimes. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with confirmation, but demanding confirmation is not God. That's usually you. What if God is only going to say it one time? And so the split rock moment comes in to break you up with your comfort zone and how you're stuck on your own self and what you have made all these requirements. Well, God, if you do this, then I'll do that. And he's like, oh, okay, she thinks she's cute. I'm just going to shake up her life. I'm going to split her up from herself. You see, this being cheated on for me, dealing with betrayal and infidelity, and make no mistake about it, every woman will have her virgin trust defiled if she's called for more. It's part of the process. I'm not saying, I want you to hear me. I really want you to hear my voice. The reason I want you to hear my voice is this. What I've learned over the last 8 years also is that we can be so loud that we can't actually hear, right? I want precise today, precise. And so we can be so attached to ourselves and all the rules that we have made about what it has to look like for us to move and to go. So God is going to split rock us up. You'll see in Believe Bigger, this passage that I was obsessed with for a little while, it said that I split the rock. It's Isaiah 48:21. I led them through the desert, and I split the rock, and through it water gushes out. And what I learned that I was in, I was like, God, wait a minute, what do you mean he led them through the desert? You put me here in this circumstance? That's when I learned that not only our steps, but also our stops are ordered. And so the split rock, I'm going to challenge you actually. I want you to hear me, but I'm going to challenge you because I want to get through this well. The split rock is designed for God to detach you from the water sources that you're used to take you into a desert where you think that everyone's abandoned you, you think that everyone has rejected you, and they may well be, but it's not personal, it's eternal. And so he's putting you in this place. He's putting you in this desert place that seems empty, it seems dry, it seems like it's not enough, and then because it's not enough, you start to believe that you're not enough. And inside of this rock, what captivated me about the scriptures, it says, and then water gushed out. And I was like, I was in geology. I remember us holding those rocks. I don't remember massive reservoirs of water being inside. And so, God, are you telling me? I'm saying this on bended knee with the scripture for days. I say, God, wait a minute. You brought me here to this desert. You didn't necessarily cause this split rock, but you've allowed it. Are you saying this didn't happen to me, but for me? Not only that, because that's now become a popular phrase. It didn't happen to you, it's happening for you. But why? Because of something that is in you that is seeking to come through you. And that's what the water represents. It's the new life. It's the new life. And the reason I wanted, just for a moment, the reason why I said I wanted to have a hush atmosphere is because I want to shift into teacher mode for just a moment. I really want you to get this, is that it is the mess that contains the mission that contains the millions. It is inside of that mess. And it has to crack you open. It has to break you up with yourself. And what happens after we experience a split rock moment, I'm not the only one who's had one, yes? Everyone has had something. Yes, let me see your hands. Okay? And so what happens is we end up in this place called the gap. The gap is this in-between place where you're kind of in transition. You're not where you used to be, but you're also not where you know you're supposed to be, based off of what God has told you you're destined to be. There's this greater place that the spirit of purpose and destiny, dreams are trying to get you to, which is the glory zone. And because these have been so prevalent in our lives, we have to be split from there to get to here. And sometimes the reason why you're not hearing an answer to your prayer is because you've anchored yourself there when he said the blessing is over here. And so he'll dry up this that used to be soil and turn it into dirt, and he's put the soil over here so that you will uproot where you've been planted. And I just want to say that we've been overtaught to grow where you're planted. There is a time to go. And if we understood that all of us are called to lead, that God is no respecter of any persons, if we taught our kids this from the very early stages, that each of them has an assignment upon their lives, that there will be a time that destiny comes, that this is what the journey looks like, that you have been called, and your time, your number will be asking for you to rise up and to leave it all behind. This is what happened when Jesus came across the disciples. They were working, they were successful, they were on a mountain, they were in motion. And so we end up in this middle space. For those who make it out of the talent stage, which is very few, we end up in this middle place called the gap. And in the gap, we ask the question, what is happening to me? We know that we're in the gap because if we look at this thing in the middle, shift, if you cover up the F, I know you can spell saints. I know you've never said it. But when it seems like things are happening all around you, it's not an attack, it's an invitation. We've got to stop saying that we're under attack by the enemy. The word says that no weapon formed against you shall prosper. If you actually knew that and believed it and lived it, you would understand that I can't actually be under attack. So the shift and the gap are two different spaces. The gap is where there's a thing I call gappers. Gappers are the ones who are always talking about what God is going to do. And this is a very sacred and special place. There is a time that we will all have to spend in the gap, but the reason the children of Israel circled was because God was trying to get them to a place where they would dump the rules, but they didn't know how to pray anymore. They didn't know how to praise, and they didn't know how to build because they had been slaves. So we had to kill off this old mindset, understand that every life shift begins with a new mind shift. Everyone, including in business. And so it was in this middle space that I found myself in. I put myself in a counselor's office 2 days a week for almost a year because I knew that my life was not my own and that I had to be okay, and that it wasn't something that I could just go and get prayer for. And so I did that, but I also started reading books. Something happens to you in the gap. A lot of people think they're in the shift because it sounds cute to say it, but you know the truth that you're in the gap. You're in transition, yes? And so when you're in this middle space, God is not designing to leave you, but he's designing to lead you. The problem is you don't know what to look for. So God's going to start sending you new ideas. And the reason we miss being able to turn the idea into income is because we don't like what actually is required to enter the shift. So I know none of you have ever been to a CLUB, a club. But in order to get into the VIP area, there's a different cost of admission. What did Tiffany say today? The price of purpose, right? And so this, I promise, as all of heaven is watching, is why most believers not only stay out of their destiny, but why they stay broke. Is because we are not willing to be investors. We know about tithing, we know about sowing, we know about offerings, and we know about begging. We know how to utilize Scripture to get what we want. I tell you, working with believers is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Because working with non-believers is actually easier because they have more faith than us. They don't hyper-spiritualize everything. I don't need to pray about, do I do this program or do I do that? I need to pray about it. Did you pray about those shoes? Did you pray about the hair? Did you pray about the lipstick? Did you pray about the purse? And so this is why we stay in the gap. You can make decisions. I want to break off of you right now, if I may, the spirit of indecisiveness. That, let me just tell you though, before you clap, you may not like the other side. Your maturity of decision will directly be related to your income. Directly. And being indecisive about something that already is the answer to the prayer that you've been praying for is being in the gap by choice. And so if you will choose to break the spirit of indecision by learning to act quickly on something that you already know that this would be good for you, you're talking yourself out of it because you are a beggar and not a builder. Okay, I got to keep it moving. And so the way we get out of the gap into the shift, number one, is that we get a bigger vision. I had to get a bigger vision. God, I know that you said to me the day after the wedding was scheduled to take place, you said you're going to be able to change the lives of women like never before. And I was like, God, couldn't you have just sent me a memo versus me being publicly humiliated? Guests coming in from all around the world with their tickets. And now I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills because I closed my business down. And the mortgage company, all the bill collectors, they didn't care that I was on a spiritual walk with God. He said, you're going to be able to change the lives of women like never before. I said, God, you know I don't really like women. You know what my experiences have been like as a young girl in elementary school, professionally. And that was also what the Split Rock was there to do, was to begin the process of softening my heart. Because it is not my accolades that can ever take the place of anointing. And anointing has to happen through a crushing. And so, but here's the other thing. We get drunk on our own anointing, which is the number 2 reason why we stay in the gap. Non-investment and just drunk on our own possibility. Talking about what God is going to do, but never actually putting feet to it. If you don't build it, you don't believe it. I know what you do I know what you believe by what you do. Don't talk to me. Show me. And business people, if you want to make a business shift, not just an emotional shift, not just a spiritual shift, but an income shift, requires an investment, because that's the rules of the business world. You cannot get a return on investment, ROI. You cannot get a return on an investment that you never make. And so what will happen in this middle space and place is that you'll start getting ideas. And if you begin to get the mentality of an investor and you start praying this very specific prayer, God, show me the person or persons that you're sending to me to help lead me into this vision that you've given me. The idea that we don't need other people is toxic thinking. Because people need you, don't they? The plans and strategies that he has given for your next is embedded in the heart and minds and the experience and mastery of somebody else. So I had to deal with not trusting women in particular, because it was a woman who had some products. And she had these courses I had never heard of before. I didn't even know you could have courses. Now, this was before internet marketing, before coaching was crowded, cluttered, pop-up coach. Anybody be a coach? You can be a coach. You're a coach. You're a coach. Everybody's a coach. But I do think that there are people who are called to coach, but I also think there are other people who just coach for the money and aren't called to do it. And so I saw her, and I was intrigued. And then I noticed she had a coaching program that was $100,000, and it started anywhere from like $15,000 to $100,000. And I wasn't. Some people are offended, especially when I tell them my prices. But I was enamored. I was like, where'd she come from? How does she do that? I travel speaking all over the place. I need to know what she knows. And so I made my first investment, and I was really scary, a little nervous about doing it. But there's an amazing thing of learning what you don't know that you don't even know that you don't know. because it's you, your prayer closet, and Google. And there's tons of information, but you need wisdom and strategy and someone who has mastery to show you a quicker way for access into where it is that you really want to be. There are highways and then there are low ways. The Bible says, as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. What if the way, the highway, quicker to get there than the low road, right? What if the highway is in somebody else's wisdom? And what I also learned through this process is that oftentimes we look for the cheapest option to get into a wealthy place. And so I'm so grateful that the first vision that God showed me of something new, which is what will happen here in this space, is that stuff will start falling down. Ideas, wisdom, inspiration, new mentors, new voices, new people, new books that will come across you. And you're going to end up in this middle space that feels like a war zone, but it's really a growth zone. And all of these things are lightning bolt moments or drops from heaven, and they're things that you miss because you don't like the way that they're packaged and they're inconvenient for you. And it was when I started making an investment that I learned what I didn't know, and I decided to have my first event because I needed to figure out how to pay my bills. So I had this event called Me University. I charged $1,497 for my first event. I did that because I saw some Caucasian guys do it, and I thought, I've done more than them, why can't I do it? I'm grateful for my future me voice. Plus, I didn't have anything to lose because I didn't know how I was going to pay my bills. Part of the reason you don't move is because you have too many comforts. Sometimes rock bottom is the only place you can find out what you're really made of. And so I charged $1,500 for my first seminar. 35 people came. That year, and I also signed HP, Hewlett-Packard, at the time was the 11th largest company in the world, as my first corporate client and sponsor. Now, I say that, I mentioned to you about the sports agency. I believe I have a grace upon my life for corporate favor, sponsorships, deals. And so the next year, in 2000, that was 2010, actually November 21st, 2010. The next year, I have another, the Me University event. It grows to about 100 and some odd people there. And that first year, we kind of made about $75,000 that first year, maybe not even quite that, probably 60. The second year, we get to $250,000 in year two. But not only do I have HP, then I have Office Depot, Ernst & Young, Delta Airlines, and Home Depot as my corporate partners, along with HP. The third year, in 2012, we generate $750,000 in year three. By now, I not only am investing in these courses, I started to say, people are actually signing up. I need some mentorship because I don't know, again, what I don't know that I don't know. And I signed up for a $12,000 mastermind. And I had heard about these before, but first I was like, who does that? And then I wanted to be the person who does that. But you cannot be what you will. You cannot become what you will not first experience yourself. If you want to be someone who is charging a premium price, then you have to be someone who pays and invests a premium price. Bottom line. And it is, by the way, the number one thing that people will say yes to and then still not do. Because I've seen this time and time again where people will look me in the eye and we will go back to the cheapest, easiest thing because it is more comfortable. But what I know about this, and now, okay, I'll go back. Let me keep going. So year 2013, I have my first Speak for Pay event. And that was also the year that I stopped saying that I was a lawyer because I hadn't been practicing law in years, but I felt like saying that I was a speaker was not good enough. I didn't feel like it was special enough. And we had our first Speak for Pay event and generated $1.2 million in 3 days. Tiffany was there. Tiffany, I remember her. I remember where she sat. She sat like right there in the center of the room, middle back. She dropped $1,997 because she didn't do the early bird. So you got to understand how special it is for me to see just to be on, just to see amplification. And so the next year, is it okay if I just share my business? It's hard because you think people are going to ask you for a loan. Okay, and then 2014, 1.6 million in 3 days. Actually, where's Tiffany Fulcher? I know you're in here too. Just yell. Okay, she was at that event that you were there too. Marsha was there. Marsha, 3 women. Wow, I just thought about that. And you know what's also important? I know today we say receipts, but I think it's very important that you fact check those who say they can help you take you to another place. It's very important to see substance and depth. And that's also one of the reasons why I talk about numbers, because there's a lot of fluff. It's very easy to put pretty pictures up on social media. And so in 2014 was $1.6 million. At this point, I am in a $50,000 coaching program. Actually, the year I did the $50,000 coaching program was the same year I stopped saying I was a lawyer. I said I was a speaker. And this is what I learned, is that this 4th stage of gifts. Gifts is where we ask the question, who am I? Who did God really design me to be? Not just who I decided to be. How did God really design me versus who I decided to be? Your talents actually block your gifts. And each of us has different gifts. The book will help you understand that. I don't have time to break down your gifts and your superpowers, but you have them. There's the superpower that's in your hands in terms of what you can create and make, whether you're a web designer or whether you're a makeup artist like Barbara, who painted my face today. She has a table out there. I wanted to honor her because she did a wonderful job, but what I also loved about her is when I said, hey, I want to change this. A lot of people catch an attitude. And she said, no problem. And so each of us has a different gift with our hands, but all of us has a universal superpower, which is our voice. And I said earlier, it's impossible to step, these are lips. It's impossible, laughing, I thought blue lips were in. So it's impossible to fulfill your purpose without embracing your voice. Now, voice is our primary identity. Think about how this all got started. God said, let there be. And I was sitting, this was in this 2013 mode. I'm shifting into this place of gifts. And I start doing all of these. I realize I have this really great gifting of helping people come up with their message and their story in moments, like to collapse time. And your gifts collapse time for other people. But what I was in my journal one day, I was at a conference like this, actually not like this because it wasn't Christ-centered at all. I had to learn from people who talked about stuff that was just spiritual stuff. There's all kinds of stuff out there. But I didn't have a believer to learn from. I didn't have one. And I didn't have to have my professors in law school be believers. And so what I learned because here's the thing, you can be so spiritually arrogant that you just we keep ourselves amongst ourselves, right? I gotta keep it moving. Okay, and so in this gift stage, I learned that this voice, and I was sitting in my hotel room, journaling after a full day of just learning and revelation and understanding. And I think I have a good enough ear to take what somebody might say about the universe, and I know how to filter it for truth, right? And I'm learning, and God started speaking, and I get my journal out, and I just journal for pages. I share some of this in Believe Bigger. And he said, you're not just a voice, you are voice. This is your core identity. This is who you've always been. This is why you're here. My people think they are a voice. They don't understand they are a voice, that this is what their ultimate life is about. And then as I began to understand that, as I began to understand why messaging and phraseology, like phrases like speak for pay, that's a very catchy phrase. I had to trademark that too. Why did I understand that these things, I've got a lot of trademarks. I'm a smart chick. And people want to take stuff from smart people. And God did give me this law school degree. I might as well use a little bit of it. So the voice, though, is for the ultimate mission. Now, you might be very gifted and talented at something very strategic or particular. You might make something crafty, whether it be healthy products or food products, whatever it is. I've worked with people from every industry there possibly is. But no matter what it is that you do, utilizing your voice is the number one way to amplify the light that is already inside of you. So that's what your voice is really for. And as you step into this place of influence, we ask the question, where am I now being led to lead? That's the question. It's the question I have for you. Where are you now being led to lead? Some of you are being called to lead in the area of working with women or working in the finance space or working in media, being in the publishing space. Now, I believe every one of you has a calling of writing a book. I also believe every one of you has an assignment, or else you wouldn't be here. Again, this isn't common. I don't feel like I show up without already knowing why I'm here. That's what it means if you know your superpowers. You might know something about people that they don't know about themselves, which is that the thing that makes everything you desire better is not just your story, but becoming a speaker. Why do I believe that? When you're speaking, you don't have to chase. And I believe a woman is designed to attract every single thing that she needs. So speaking makes it easier. The yoke is light. The yoke is easy. The burden is easy. Burden yoke thing, you know. So on the other side of a shift of believing bigger, investing bigger, and finding your gifts, whatever yours are, I found my gift was business. I thought that because God was calling me to it, I needed to go to seminary. I didn't realize that the experiences I had on the mountains that I climbed were enough to give me the millions on the other side. So you don't have to know your story perfectly. You can take what you already know and start teaching others. That's how I paid my way through law school. I won interview at Miss America, so then I just showed other people how to do the same. I got endorsements for other people. I got corporate clients, so I showed other people how to do the same. So you can take what it is that you already know and show other people how to do what you've already done. In the process, you will find your gifts. In the process, you will find your voice. And in the process, you'll also come to every single thing that you've been waiting for that you thought would never come. Because not only will you have greater impact, impacting other people. Not only will you change lives. I had a woman who said that she was about to commit suicide one day, and she was sitting in this seminar. She shared with me 6 months later that when she was at that seminar, I was getting ready to commit suicide. And she said, but I listened to you talk about destiny, purpose, and dreams, and the idea that it didn't just happen to me, that it happened for me, and that my mess was really a message, and she handed me 6 months later her book. And I thought about all the people who said business wasn't holy. The other reason why this Millions and Tiffany, you're so special, is because I question, people will never know. They think it's great to be a trail leader. It's great to be the first. But there was nobody doing this faith in business thing. And it stretched me. It felt like it ripped the core out of me. And I was like, but wait a minute. The scripture in James 1:17 that said every good and perfect gift is from above, you mean business too? You mean that's just as sacred as prophet and apostle and all those other things? That's just as sacred. So yes, you will impact lives, but he's not going to leave your heart behind. You met my handsome, amazing, boo-thang, chocolate, handsome hunk of a husband. Yes, because when we first started, we were just engaged. I didn't say that we was married, and then I had to pee on that. I had to mark my territory. I shouldn't have said pee out loud in front of all these believers. But But in closing, this is what I want to share with you. I'm sorry, I know I've probably gone over. Okay. Can I have 10 minutes? Okay. So, what I want you to see through here is that everything you desire is on the other side of your shift. Now, if I was, what? You didn't do that are you talking to me? You talking to me? Keep going? Everyone say, keep going. Okay, so if I was at a different event or in a different environment, I would talk about a different kind of shift. Because there's emotional shifts, there's spiritual shifts, and even in business, there's different kinds of shifts, right? Depending on what vision you've had, there might be something different of you that's required to get out of whatever version of the gap that you're in. And so I said I wanted to share with you specifically why, for those of you, again, let me see by show of hands, know that speaking is one of the things that's a mantle upon your life. That will make everything easier too. Yes, look around the room. I just want you to see you're not by yourself. So I just want to share with you some very quick practical things about why you're stuck and why most people never make it out. Or if they do, why they dabble as opposed to dive into it. May I have a drink of water real fast? That was a lot of words. I think this is the most fun I have had all year. Have done events with HP this year, 3. We're getting ready to do 10 cities, 4 domestically, 6 countries next year. Germany, India, France, Singapore. I forget the rest of those. And then I have another proposal that I just submitted for the largest consulting firm in the country. I'm not going to say their name, but some of you already know who that is. To do 4 different countries to build entrepreneurship programs for women in the UK, in India, in Japan, and in South Africa. And the thing about that is so unique is that they're asking for it to be based on this book that happens to even talk about a carpenter. I just need a won't he do it for just a second, okay? Because I was prepared for rejection because I knew I wasn't going to change my message. And I was like, when I started growing my business, I actually stepped back from speaking to teach other people how to speak. That's the other thing to understand about this season when you're trying to figure out what do I share with people. You can be in it, but you can't be in it at the same level that you've always been in it because there's a difference in being the prophet and being the rabbi. There's a difference in being like in this stage of learning and growing and being the master that teaches others. Because those who are sharpshooters, they learn how to shoot, but then they learn from someone who shot before, right? So you've got to understand what the shift season is. And so I shifted from being in it because, again, I had been speaking professionally and traveling for a long time since I was in my teens. And I had generated multiple 6 figures in my early 20s before, I know this is going to sound really old, before the internet. Before you could have your own web page. And I was online early, but before you could do all of that. And so I've learned a lot of, or seen a lot of things that keep people stuck. Not just as a speaker, because you could look at me and say, oh, you're different, which is little me, because God's not a respecter of persons, but I've seen things as a coach because the company that I've built is the largest coaching company for women of faith in the country. And so it's through that time period that I've learned what are the mistakes that people make, and I just want to share them with you. If that's okay, let me hear you say yes. So one of the most common myths that people have is that I have to start at a speaker's bureau. Not true. Today, a bureau probably won't represent you anyway if you don't already have a successful platform, because they pretty much are selling a product that they know will already sell off the shelves, but you just happen to be the product, and the shelf is their roster. So another myth is that, cramp. Stand on it. I feel like Fantasia. Okay. Okay. Toastmasters or the National Speakers Association. People think they have to join Toastmasters to get experience. National Speakers Association, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not a requirement. And you're going to be speaking to other people who are speaking kind of like the lawyer said, I need to talk to other lawyers, but no one's going to hire you there. You're just going to go in circles with other people. And most people who come to our program have been in Toastmasters or NSA, and they're not making anything. So it will teach you to become seasoned at presentation, which is great, but it won't teach you how to make money as a speaker. People think you have to be certified. You don't have to be certified. You don't need permission. You've already been commissioned. People think you need to have experience. You don't have experience till you get experience. So one of the other things, in addition to believing bigger, investing bigger, is also to start before you're ready. Another myth is that I have to get started by speaking for free. There's the myth of that I can't charge at church or for a ministry or a God-like message. And because I came out of the choir, the musicians, they're like, oh goodness, this is about to set them free too. Those are religious thinking designed to keep you out of a place of freedom, and it's protocol. Protocol is just a man-made decision. It doesn't mean that God said it, even though man will amplify that. So, because I came from a law background, and because I grew up in church but not in ministry, I didn't know the protocol. So the first time I got asked to go to a church, I sent the same contract that I send to companies and to colleges. It's amazing what you can do if you don't know what you were told you needed to do. Another myth is that maybe my story isn't good enough. I believe that actually, new levels, new challenges, I don't give devils credit, but I didn't believe this story that I told you today about infidelity was worth it. I thought that I was just a strategy girl. The only thing that people wanted from me was my brain, because those were the things that were ingrained in me. None of the boys dated me. When I was growing up, I didn't have real friends that loved me for me versus the fact that it was just good to be around me. And so even as I'm growing this successful company, I don't really believe that people want me. They want Marshawn.com. And so it was my husband that told me to write this story, Believe Bigger. And then another myth, and it's interesting because God will take you through some things. I said that your mess and your mission in the split rock are tied together, which they are, but I don't talk about relationships. Everything that you've gone through isn't necessarily your business message. I'm not an expert in, well, I don't want to say I am and not as a sentence, but I haven't built a business as an expert in relationships. I shared this with my husband the other day. He goes, yeah, but really that's what you do. You teach people to reinvent their life. I'm like, no, I teach them how to be successful. I want to make millionaires. He goes, yeah, but you're really talking about how do you get through a rough time in your life? How do you reinvent? How do you heal your heart? And I was like, huh. So even for me, this is 2 weeks ago, with a book, I'm still having to believe bigger about depths of abilities. And so sometimes we think our story isn't good enough, all these myths. Now, what does that translate into mistakes? Myths and mistakes are a little bit different, but the myths are what cause us to make mistakes. What happens is, as we get started as a speaker, is we end up having poor clarity, meaning we have a story or we have trauma and drama, but we don't actually know how to turn it into a story because we've been only taught testimony. Story, testimony, and strategy are not the same thing. The intention, the objective is different. So poor clarity, poor messaging, which is your story and your message are also different. Your story is your journey, but your story has to be tied to an outcome and an objective that other people are interested in. Otherwise, you're on stage vomiting and bleeding without any way of sewing that up that creates healing. All you're doing is rewounding other people. It took me 9 years from the point that my wedding was called off to write this book because it wasn't about me just telling the story. I started with my strategy. Now, if you're in business, this is a key thing from shifting from ministry to industry, is to start sharing strategy. Stop walking about talking about, I want to make money sharing my testimony. You're in the wrong league. You're in a low way as opposed to a highway. Strategy. So what's the thing that you know that other people are already picking your brain about? The reason I started my company was because people were picking my brain. I said, why don't I just hold an event? Okay, poor messaging, poor branding, poor positioning, poor packaging, poor pricing. No pricing. Poor pitching, marketing, poor structure, poor mentorship. We've talked about poor investments, and also poor consistency. Some of it is just you're not doing it consistently enough. Some of you have had speaking engagements here or there, but you don't know how to turn it into something that is consistent that you can feed your family with. And so all of those things together, if you notice, poor clarity, poor messaging, poor consistency, poor packaging, poor pricing begins with poor. And so the question is, which mistakes have you been making? But the higher question is, are you willing and ready to do something different? And so I believe everything that you desire, is on the other side of you learning not just what your story is, you embracing your ultimate superpower, which is your voice, but becoming a speaker. I only speak about what I know. I don't go out there and try to pull stuff on social media and call myself an expert on it. I only teach what I've mastered at a level of mastery, because when you're imparted and responsible for the destinies of others, you need to have some depth, or you're going to take them to outer space without a mask, and they won't be able to sustain it because you didn't gain the depth. And so being good at what you do, but I do believe speaking makes everything easier. So as I close out, I've shared with you some myths. I've shared with you some mistakes. I've shared with you what the path looks like, and also how this is what's been able to help me in those 6 years that I was actively running my coaching business, generate $5 million through coaching, through speaking, teaching other people how to do the same, and also to be able to take the last 3 years off on sabbatical, 3 years off, to now step into building multi-six-figure, $500,000 speaking engagement proposals with some of the biggest companies in the world. I went through this, and God said, okay, you got too comfortable. You thought those were millions? I'm going to show you something else. So I'm not working with mentors that make 7 figures. Now I'm working with 8 and 10-figure ones, because that's where I'm going to, because I know when I learn that, I've got to now teach other people how to do the same. So I'm like right about here right now, but in the new dimension, right? I'm right here. You're right here. You need to get out so that you can use your voice of mastery to show other people how to get out. See how it works? And so as I close out, I did bring a resource, because I don't believe in hype without how. I believe firmly in specificity. And so I've created or provided 2 different resources, one called the Getting Started System for Speakers, and the other is called Find Your Voice. Nervous foot. And I'll be right out here. Also, I hope, is our books out there? Oh, great. So our Barnes & Noble is here, and they're running a book table for us, so I'll have copies of Believe Bigger. I'm happy to sign it for as many as they have. But I just want to tell you, some of you are going to settle for a book when you really need a strategy. And so the Getting Started System for Speakers is normally $397, and it's $247. That's $247, not $2.47. And the Find Your Voice class is the same price, $247, or both together for $347. I want to take 10% of the proceeds and sow them back into millions. And I also want to make myself available to any program that you have. I will come in and you tell me what you need for me to do, and I will support you in it. But the Getting Started system is designed to teach you step by step how to launch, build, and grow your coaching business. For those of you who are like, I want to start speaking, but I don't know what my message is, I don't know what my voice is, there's Find Your Voice. And so together, it's either $247 a piece or $347 together, which, by the way, people who are in this room know this, the lowest level coaching program that I offer is $10,000, and it goes up to $50,000. So I wanted to make something that wasn't cheap, because I don't play cheap, because I don't want you to do that, but I wanted to offer something as premium, because I decided to be in the Rolls Royce of coaching, and I would like some company up there too. So with that being said, I love you. I appreciate you. I know the best is within you. I can't believe I'm finishing barefooted like Fantasia. Oh, and one other thing. For the first 25 people who decide to join this, I'm giving you my contracts that I use, right? My speaker contract, but also the invoice that I use as a speaker as well, just for those who are fast actors. And I just appreciate the opportunity to be here. Tiffany, I pray that I get to be connected to you for life. But you have blessed my life in ways that have challenged me even to believe bigger. I will always be there to have your back. I believe that you have a supernatural gift of building community in a way that is extraordinary. And for people who do not see it and do not connect it, they will miss out on the caliber of light that they can shine and the destiny that they can only get by being connected to you. And there are certain people that you have to be connected to when God has designed that. And you are one of those persons for me, and I know for others. And I just want to say I bless you, I love you, and appreciate you. And God bless all of you. Mwah. Thank you.
One more round of applause for Marshawn. So amazing. Well, I'm coming up barefoot too, apparently.